All right, well, good evening. We will get this board meeting to order. And Edwin, if you would, sir, with the roll, please.
Commissioner Braybeck?
Here.
Commissioner Diedrich?
Here.
Commissioner Jamnick? Commissioner Jefferson?
Here.
Commissioner Labar?
Here.
Commissioner Martinez-Kratz? Commissioner Morgan? Commissioner Ping? Commissioner Smith?
Great. Please join me in, sorry. Please join me in the pledge. Would anyone be willing to move approval of our January 17th minutes? Is there support? Great. Minutes having been moved and supported. Any discussion on approval of minutes? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. Minutes are approved. Now is our time for citizen participation. You have up to 3 minutes to address us. If you wish to do so, please just state your name and the community you are representing. Does anyone wish to address us at this time? Come on up. There's a intricate light system that will give you a countdown.
Thank you. My name is Eric Kaljan. I'm an Ann Arbor citizen. Last year, we purchased 120 acres of land in Ann Arbor Township bordering Ann Arbor in order to begin an organic farm while preserving its natural features. We applied to Ann Arbor Township for a conservation easement on 112 of the acres. A flyer attached to this document describes the property. The natural features of the property included 2 Huron River tributaries, 40 acres of wetlands, mature woods, substantial frontage on a public road and a freeway. The Natural Area Preservations Program in Washtenaw County was also given our application. It was listed as a 2016 priority pending partnerships. Subsequently, 75% of the appraised value was provided in partnership by the Ann Arbor Township and the City Greenbelt program. Our application was in process for well over a year, and together with the township, we worked to demonstrate objective evidence of the quality natural areas worthy of preservation, agree on how to reasonably address building within defined envelopes and planning for an easement property with no intact structures, and finally reduce the county contribution requested and generate an unusually low cost per acre. As a result, the advisory committee, NATAC, voted unanimously in favor of partnership. On January 9th, the Parks Commission rejected the unanimous recommendation by the advisory committee for participation in the easement. We have compiled a complete chronology of our application process here in this document and have included official information about the NATAC Preservation Program. The events detailed in this document indicate a high degree of dysfunction and overall failure by NATAC and parks at multiple levels to fulfill the mandate given by the county citizens for conservation of the green space parcel. The failure to recognize and act on an opportunity of this significance reflects underlying failures in process, policy, and mission. These failures are listed in the document, and some will be discussed by Cindy Stiles in her public comments following mine. Major changes are required in order to appropriately manage the funds entrusted to NAPP. We respectfully demand that the Board of Commissioners investigate the failures in process, policy, and mission described, and then implement a remediation plan that effectively addresses these concerns. The underlying basis for the failure of parks to fulfill the NAPP mandate, in our case, appears to be the diversion of a large amount of funds into an endowment program. As Washtenaw County citizens, we object to this as being well outside the scope of the ballot language, and we insist that such an endowment be approved only by vote of the people with clear understanding of how their tax dollars will be used. This will require transparent public accounting of expenses from parks, as well as public support of the endowment and its management. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to address us at this time?
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Stiles. I am also one of the owners of the piece of property that my husband just discussed, and my public comments come as a taxpayer, and I want to just list for you briefly the failures that we saw in the process as we went through the application for putting our land in the Greenbelt. With the county parks, the failures in the process include the absence of a documented objective scoring method and process for prioritization of properties for conservation, inappropriate influence of NATAC staff over the independent judgment of NATAC technical experts, efforts to delay recommendations or lessen the amount of the contribution toward our conservation easement, the lack of staff transparency at NATAC meetings regarding the amounts of funds available for purchase of conservation easements and the amounts of spending per year, even when asked by their technical board, the park refusal to respect the unanimous conclusion of NATAC experts regarding the sustainability and suitability of natural area conservation funding. Failures in policy include the inability to reasonably consider a property having features of both natural and agricultural areas in the context of the NAP ordinance, sacrificing worthy land preservation directly supported by the ballot mandate that we voted for in order to set aside more than an entire year's millage toward an endowment fund that has not been approved by Washtenaw County citizens or by Washtenaw County commissioners, lack of coherent policy strategy for determination of allocation of properties between public parks which allow access but require maintenance and conservation easements which fulfill the ballot mandate but do not require maintenance or monitoring by the county, lack of defined metrics for determining how many public parks are adequate for Washtenaw County, absence of detailed accounting data publicly available regarding the costs of maintaining property and administering NAP independent of other park expenses, lack of forecast of maintenance costs if property purchases continue at the same rate relative to conservation easements, and lack of respect for local municipalities to enforce ordinances regarding issues such as size of residential buildings and conservation easements. There seems to be in the mission a lack of understanding of the difference between parks vision and a conservation vision, pardon me, conflation of public access with public good, lack of clear delineation of boundaries between funding for NAP and other park programs, a willingness to sacrifice the mandate of NAP by promoting extremely high amount of funding for transfer to proposed endowment relative to the annual budget, and a lack of respect for local municipalities to administer and monitor terms of their conservation easements. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone else who wishes to address us?
Good evening. My name is Barry Lonick. I'm a resident of Dexter Township. Cindy and Eric's example here is just one of a number of perplexing incidents that I've encountered with the Natural Area Preservation Program over the last couple of years, starting with the baseless insistence on public access to private property protected by conservation easements, buying properties based on appraisals that are way out of whack with market conditions. There's no criteria for the Natural Area Committee to evaluate nominated properties. There's no targeting of quality properties. There's no outreach to owners of those properties. As Cindy and Eric mentioned, the endowment fund proposal is now to the point of where it's hampering future activities. The department is claiming that it costs $600,000 a year to manage the 35 preserves that have been bought through the program, but it has not provided a detailed budget of those costs nor an accounting of what the cost has been in recent years. The endowment proposal is to take $15 million, which is about 42% of the expected current millage revenues, out of acquisition funds, and basically crippling the program for the remainder of its term. 22 years ago, this July, I stood here before your predecessors and advocated for public funding for land preservation in Washtenaw County. We've had a number of successes over that time, and clearly Washtenaw County is a leader in that regard, statewide and beyond. A lot of people worked really hard for a long time to achieve that goal through public education and numerous ballot campaigns, and people voted for a tax twice by huge numbers. We just want the funds that have been dedicated for this purpose to be used effectively and for the purposes stated and intended. I've submitted a list of questions to Commissioner Dietrich that I think need to be asked of the Parks Department. They're ones, frankly, that the Parks Commission should have asked themselves, but didn't, so now we appeal to you for transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, and forgive my snout-related issue there. Anyone else who wishes to address us at this time?
I do, Mr. Chairman. My name is James Demore, and I'm speaking to you in informal remarks as Vice Chair of the Sierra Club of the Huron Valley Group, which represents 3,300 members in the greater Washtenaw County area committed to exploring, enjoying, and protecting the great outdoors, including the parcels and programs we're talking about, as the previous speaker had said. I've addressed this committee before over this issue, and I'm not going to go into great detail tonight, and I don't have any, as I said, formal remarks. But I am concerned, once again, that the county is still talking about a $15 million endowment fund. As a previous speaker has said, this essentially cripples the program. It wires it essentially shuts the program down prematurely before a major conversation can be had over the appropriateness of an endowment fund. Now, maybe an interim endowment fund can be made in terms of the possibility of future millages. That's something, a conversation that can be had. I wouldn't have come before you this evening, but I did hear word of what the previous speakers have talked about a major high-quality parcel that had been turned down by the Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation Commission due to other priorities. And if this priority is over the endowment fund, I have real concerns. Many citizens have worked many years in different venues, not the least of which the Ann Arbor Greenbelt program itself, and the Sierra Club has worked very hard to pioneer all these programs. And it's very sad to see this legacy being taken away, in my view, prematurely for pretenses, especially when I hear about high-quality parcels like the one just described, that had met the approval of the Ann Arbor Greenbelt Commission, that met the approval of Ann Arbor Township. They had partners ready to go. What is happening at Parks and Recreation Commission? Is this related to the endowment fund? We now have some serious concerns. Now, we will work with Parks and Recreation, and we will work with this body moving forward in a dialogue and coming up with solutions in terms of talking about the issues of maintenance and other operations in terms of parks protection. But at any rate, let's take a look here and let's have, if it's possible for these people, give them a second chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to address us at this time?
Good evening. My name is Chuck Boltman. I live within the city limits. Actually, I'm an urbanist. I live very close. I walked here tonight. I'm also an architect, and as part of my practice, I have been using old buildings and converting them to be new things. That has taken me out of urban environments and brought me to rural environments to work with people who own small farms. And so over the course of the last 20 years, I've gotten very involved in that subject, and it has taken me to being a part of organizations like the National Barn Alliance and other things, of which I'm now current president. What I wanted to talk to you tonight about is philosophy. I think there's a philosophy amongst many organizations, and when I'm hearing about this, it would be included in this board as well, is that we don't look at farms anymore as something to keep and open land as something to keep. It's a bit of a mechanical process, and it shouldn't be. I can tell you firsthand, people come to me with land and property and they say, what can I do with it? And I tell them that the way we've written our laws, it's stacked against you using it as a farm. I can more easily develop it into houses. And that would bring work my way, but I don't want to tell them that, and that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear boards like yourselves to try to find ways to say yes. To say yes so that they can have the land to be open and use it differently. We don't have a model right now for a 21st century family farm. The only models we have are 19th century family farms, and they're not going to look the same in the 21st century. Through the 20th century, we built industrial farms, and that's how we used our open land. Now we have people wanting to do things differently, and we have many different organizations, and I'm not just saying this organization and the way the Greenbelt has been working, it's other things. It includes our zoning codes. We need to find ways to let people use their land in an agrarian way, in a better way. Because otherwise people like myself who know how to develop it are going to do so. And I prefer to be developing the land inside the city than the land outside the city. It's easier to develop the land outside the city, much easier. Ask Ron Mucha and how much trouble he went through getting approval for his 8 or so acres in Lowertown. It's been a big process for him. So let's concentrate on developing inside our cities, and let's find ways to let people use their open land outside our cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to address us at this time? Okay. We'll move then to Commissioner follow-up. I had Commissioner Smith indicate he'd like to speak.
So it's, to me, a little bit disappointing, the kind of information that you've been presented with around this particular property. It's incomplete at the very best. Commissioners, let me tell you, this property was considered for land preservation under both the Ag Lands Preservation Committee and the Natural Features Committee. It simply does not qualify for our ag protection work. Why is that? It's not in farming. It's not being actively farmed. They tell you about Ann Arbor Township's participation in this particular land purchase. Ann Arbor Township is paying for this out of their general fund because it does not qualify for their land preservation program. When you look at the Natural Features Preservation Program allocation that might have been made for this, it looks elegant, except that it is effectively public money for a private park. What these folks have proposed to the Parks Commission and to NATAC is that this section of land, which is currently undeveloped and wooded, would be preserved with public dollars, except that there would be 2 very significant development sites pulled out of that so that residential buildings could be built in the middle of it. So what we're talking about here is not land preservation, it's development. It is preserving large parcels of land using public money for private benefit. That is why the Parks Commission rejected this proposal. And we did so with only 1 dissenting vote. To suggest that we have no standards in application for the selection of these properties too, it is supremely offensive. You've been here at these board meetings when you've seen the Parks Commission come and present their GIS maps of high quality lands with our priorities for preservation, right? This particular property, again, doesn't qualify for ag land because it's not in agricultural production, and it is a medium to low quality natural preservation land. It's not a high quality preservation land. So I appreciate the passion that these landowners bring to the work that they want to do. They have a vision, as was mentioned, about how ag land can be developed and farmed in a modern economy. I think that is inspirational. But to suggest that our process for some reason is broken because they didn't get what they wanted out of it is not appropriate in my estimation. I will say too about the endowment, and I know we're going to have a larger conversation about this, and next week there's a public meeting at Parks and Recreation Commission. Ricky, what did they say, the 7th, or I can't remember the date of it. I've asked Ginny Trocchio to email the board with the date of this, but we're going to have a public meeting about the endowment with the other land preservation entities around the county. Nonetheless, even if we were able to do, even if we held all the money that we're completely proposing right now to hold for particular endowment-esque uses, we would still have $3 to $4 million to spend on land acquisition. So I'm excited to get into that policy conversation with you all about the value of having an endowment. I think that is, it's going to be tricky, but it's also smart public policy that this board previously enabled by amending the ordinance. But when it comes to this particular property, that's a completely separate issue. It's not high-quality land. It's not land in agricultural production currently, and it was rightfully, in my opinion, rejected by the Parks Commission.
Commissioner Dietrich?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Smith, for your comments. First, I'd like to thank the citizens who came here. I represent Eric and Cindy, and thus my involvement in the questions that Mr. Lonick mentioned being sent to me about process. And I know we all consider lots and lots of properties, and it's easy to get confused about details, but I just wanted to set the record straight on a couple of things. My understanding is it was actually that the Ann Arbor Township funds that were going to be dedicated to this did come from their dedicated millage. And I sit on ALPAC, I sit on the Agricultural Land Preservation Advisory Committee, and we didn't consider this property, to my knowledge. Maybe, well, I accept the apology. A couple things. From the point of view of a farmer, timberland is farmland, is agricultural. We raise timber, can be. We raise timber for harvest. My family farm, we are actively doing that right now. So just one thought about this land. Second, there have been other parcels that have been approved, I believe, I have been told by people, I trust staff on parks, that have had building envelopes. And part of what was spoken to here this evening was that we do have to think about farms in a different way. On my own 80-acre farm, it's going to be, my husband and I, I'm just going to speak from my own experience. My husband and I bought that with our retirement. It is our retirement. Yes, we will be building a farm there. It is not conservation land currently, but that's the only way we could buy it, and we bought it and prevented it from being developed, which I believe is exactly what's going on with this particular piece of land. So I do think we have to think about things in a different way going forward. That point is well taken. One thing about this land is that the cost to the county was $1,600 an acre, which is incredibly cheap. This was a bargain. So, and we had the unanimous recommendation of NATAC. And I am concerned about a process where we could have a unanimous recommendation by NATAC and a nearly unanimous refusal by the Parks Commission. Something seems to be going awry there. That we're not having an agreement on the principles and by which we're making these decisions, and I think that means that we can end up treating citizens poorly, people who are engaging in this process in good faith. So I do feel it would be good for us for that issue to be addressed. I think there is a greater issue with the endowment that needs to be addressed, and that so long as that issue is outstanding, refusals could be understood in this light, rightly or wrongly. And I really hope that our Parks Director came to us way back in September. We were hoping for a report back on a number of items, and I hope that will come sooner rather than later, so that there's a clear understanding of how much money we have going forward to preserve land, and so that our taxpayers, if they're asked to vote for another millage, are really clear on how that money has been used and will be used in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Thank you, Chair. The NAP endowment public meeting is February the 13th at Parks and Recs building on Platt Road. It'll start at 6 p.m. and it runs through 7:30 p.m. That's all.
Any other commissioner follow-up on this issue? Okay. Seeing none, then we'll move to communications. Somebody willing to move to file communications? Is there support? Support. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Move then to liaison reports. Any liaison reports at this time? Commissioner Dietrich.
As your liaison to the Department of Public Works Board, I am again reporting on the county landfill. Last week, the county landfill actually received a nuisance citation, Section 109, from the MDEQ for exceeding the odor levels that are acceptable. I have driven there many times, and I smell a really bad odor when I go. It's never been bad enough to receive a citation, so this must have been very bad. The number of complaints is huge, and The response of MDQ to our citizens who are complaining is that it is simply a matter of the amount of garbage. The surface area of this is no longer an issue of the uncollected gases that were not being collected properly. The surface area of the landfill is only increasing. It's only getting higher, can go up another 100 feet. So especially under winter weather conditions, unfortunately, I do not anticipate the situation getting better. And that is my report. Thank you.
Any other liaison reports at this time? Commissioner Brayback.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to remind folks, in terms of the work that we get to do on equity, that both the GARE and the Policy Link conferences, they're in Chicago this year, so they're closer. And so I would just encourage folks, if they have the time or interest, to really attend. The GARE portion is at the beginning of the week, the Policy Link is at the end of the week, and it's April 9th through the 13th. I believe the GARE portion is the first 2 days, Policy Link is the last 3 days of that week. The Policy Link conference right now, if you go to their site, you have to go on a wait list, but it sounds like they're trying to make arrangements to be able to widen the participation of that, which is amazing. It's, their equity summit, and it's sold out already, so that's really exciting. Thank you, Chair.
Sure. Any other liaison reports at this time? I just have two quick things. I will, at our next meeting or in between meetings, have further communication on RTA status. There's an upcoming meeting at the end of this week or perhaps early next week, so I'll have more information then. Also, I'd call your attention to a handout which is on our desks that comes courtesy of Kurt Hedger, our corporation counsel, that recapped the...
I only gave that to you and Jason.
Be on the lookout for a communication from Kurt Hedger that recaps the Tuesday, January 23rd mediation meeting that Commissioner Morgan and I attended per the board resolution. So please be on the lookout for it now that you've been awkwardly made aware. Those are the only liaison reports I have at this time. So I would move then to Kurt. We can
move the whole agenda.
Even with special order.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's just a resolution.
Can I get somebody to move the whole agenda? But just please remember that we do have the supplemental, which has been handed out, which includes the two proclamations and the reports on 25,000 and under. Anyone willing to move that? Perhaps Commissioner Ping?
Thank you, Chair. So I would like to move the agenda starting with item number 9, 8. Thank you. Special order business A, item number 9, A and B, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 1, 15, I'm sorry, there's 12-1, which is on the supplemental, and then 15A1, B1 and 2, and C1.
Full agenda having been moved and supported. Any items that commissioners wish to take aside for separate consideration? Commissioner Dietrich?
Yes, item 15, 2, authorizing the promulgation of Medicaid classification.
Any other items that commissioners wish to pull aside? Okay. Seeing none, we'll vote on the full agenda except for item 15B2.
Commissioner Brayback?
Yes.
Commissioner Dietrich?
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Yes.
Commissioner Labar?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez-Kratz? Yes. Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Commissioner Ping? Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Agenda passed.
Great. We'll move then to item 15B2, which should be, this is a resolution authorizing the full engagement of Washtenaw County on the issue of the state of Michigan's Medicaid enrollment classification. Any discussion at this time? Commissioner Dietrich?
Yes, I simply would like to make a friendly amendment. I'll describe what it is, and then I'll make the amendment to add to the penultimate or next to last clause, sending this resolution to some additional entities. So shall I go ahead and move that? Yeah.
Please.
So I move that we add to the penultimate clause the following entities: the Michigan Association of Counties, the CMH Partnership of Southeast Michigan, and the Board of Commissioners of the other 82 counties. And I have that written down, Edwin. So I move that.
Haven't been moved and supported. Any opposition to accepting it as a friendly amendment?
Did someone second it?
Yes. Okay. Seeing none, it's accepted. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. It's accepted as a friendly amendment. Commissioner Dietrich, the floor is still yours.
Thank you, Chair. I relinquish the floor.
I'd speak on this just to say it's an important issue, and I appreciate our two members of the Community Mental Health Board, Commissioner Brabeck and Commissioner Martinez-Kratz, who have been active on it in that role. You'll recall we've talked in the past about activating GCSI on things, and this is something where we desperately need their assistance. And so I would just say, if you have a chance, please talk to your constituents and whoever will listen to on this. This is a big hit that's coming down the pike, and we are hopeful, Commissioner Brabeck and myself, along with staff, to at least engage directly in our two roles with folks in Lansing to try and be affirmative and direct about the negative impacts that are coming. And I would note there's been MLive coverage, you may have seen it in the emails. Ottawa County, bastion of communist and liberal thinking, is dealing with the effects of this policy. It's statewide in its reach, it's across the aisle, and it's inherently negative. So I'll get off my soapbox, but I appreciate your support on this, and the administrator wisely handed me a note to remind you, GCSI will be here tomorrow at working session, so we should fiercely question them. So, any other discussion? Commissioner Dietrich.
I want to express my gratitude, too, for the work on this that everyone's done, including CMH Board, and this is vital and is evidence of how dysfunctional our state government is. So that's why I wanted to make sure we got this word out to as many of other entities as possible, because I'm wondering if everyone is aware of it in the other 82 counties. Yeah, they're not. Commissioner Brabeck is indicating, yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Brabeck.
I just wanted to make sure that Commissioner Dietrich's resolution or the amendment, did it include the Board Association?
I don't believe it included the Michigan Community Mental Health Board Association.
That may be, I think that would be another good place for us to send our resolution, because they are kind of the hub of dealing with what's coming up from all of us, from the counties. So that, I think, would be another place to put that, to send it.
Do you want to move to add it?
Yes, please. Can we add the Board Association?
Sure. Is there support? Okay.
Is that just what they're calling the Board Association?
No, I'm sure that there's...
Michigan Association of Community Health Boards.
Yeah, they're, sorry, the shortcut.
The Board Association.
The Board Association.
Any objection to it being a friendly amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Great. Sure. Any other discussion on this item? Okay. Edwin, sir?
Commissioner Dietrich?
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Yes.
Commissioner Labar?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez-Kratz? Yes. Commissioner Morgan? Yes. Commissioner Ping? Yes. Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Brabeck?
Yes.
Item passed.
Thank you. Move then to item 16, which is report from the county administrator.
No additional report.
Any items under 17, which is items for current or future discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain an item under item 18, which is adjournment. It has been moved. Prior to approval, it must be supported. Is there support for the measure to adjourn? Having been moved and supported, we'll vote. All those in favor of adjournment indicate by saying aye. And those opposed to adjournment say no. Ayes have it, we are adjourned.